Hi, Toby here. I thought I'd do a quick recording based on Sarah's request for having something like the drawing displayed in layout in black and white, but the plants in color. And I think Sally mentioned this in her as one of the options, but wasn't in her recording. So I thought I'd add this one because I think this is probably the right way to do it, or the best way to do it. So what I would do is I'm going to create three scenes from this top-down scene I've got here. First, I'm clicking on the top-down scene to make sure that that's the actual scene that I've got, and I'll just add a scene, and I'm going to rename this one to plants only. Okay, and I'm going to create another scene and rename this one to BW Garden. Cool. So these are all exactly the same scene in exactly the same position. So what I want to do now is, if we're going, you can either use tags or you can use the visibility settings on in Outliner. I tend to use Outliner, but I'll just show you with the tags. And actually for this, tags is probably the smart way to do it because all shoot plants are automatically put onto a tag called shoot plants. So I'm going to create a new tag first of all, and I'm going to call it everything else, just for the sake of illustration. And if I switch off the shoot plant, because I haven't got anything tagged in here apart from the shoot plants. So that's my garden with nothing else tagged. And if I now select everything and put it on to the everything else tag, and if you haven't, by the way, got tagging as part of on your toolbar, it's worth adding it because it's much easier to tag things, I find, from here. And you can just say, I want everything that's highlighted, put on the everything else tag. So now I can switch off everything else and I can switch on the shoot plants. So I've got two, different visibilities. So now we want to go to the plants only scene and make everything else invisible. And remember to update the scene. So I've got top down plants only. Now I need the black and white garden, which will have the shoot plants switched off, and we're going to apply, I'm just going to do a wireframe style for this one. You could use any of the styles you want. And again, now we need to update, and it's going to give you this warning saying, do you want to save this as a new style, which is what we want to do. We don't want, because we want this black and white to be separate, so we'll update the scene. So we've got a black and white garden only, we've got plants only, and we've got top down. So I'm going to go to the black and white garden and send that one to layout. So we'll save first of all, because you can't do this until you've saved, and send to layout. And I'm working this out as I go, so anything can happen. But I think this is the right way to do it. Let's put it on A4 landscape. Cool, so there's our black and white garden. Now in layout, you want to create two layers. So I'm going to create one layer and rename it. And it'll be the same sort of thing. It's garden only will be the first one. And we'll create one and we'll call this plants only. Or just plants. So rename this to plants. So those are our two layers. So the first thing I need to do now is to take this viewport that we've imported and right click on it and move it to the layer garden only. I'm now going to go Control C and Control V, and what that does is it copies that viewport that's selected and pastes another one on top of it. And this one I'm going to right click and move to layer plants. Okay, so I've got actually two identical viewports at the moment, but this plants one that I've got, and we can hide just to make sure we're doing the right one. So let's switch off garden only. And on this one that's remaining now, which is called plants, if I switch both off, everything will disappear. So I now know that this is the plants viewport I've got switched on. And we go to the SketchUp model, and we change the scene here from BW Garden to plants only. Okay, so that's our plants only scene. And if we now switch on in layers, you've seen that one disappeared over the other, because garden is not switched on. So now we switch the garden on, and we've got the garden black and white with colored plants. Now, you also mentioned about clarity, and I think what you're talking about is this, that when you zoom in, you haven't got clear circles. And that's usually because of the rendering of your model. So in SketchUp model, when you choose the plants, in this case, the scene with plants, which is plants only, there we go. You want to make this hybrid, the rendering style hybrid. It will give you a warning. If you've got a slow machine and lots of plants, this can take a while. So just be patient. This triangle appears while it's rendering, and when it's done, you'll get super crisp circles. And I think that, that looks the best. So hopefully that kind of addresses the effect that you wanted to get to. So Toby again, as a quick follow-on to the last video, there's one more thing which I wanted to mention. So what we've done, just to recap on getting to this point, is we've created a layout file which has got two layers on it. So if I go to my layers, we've got the garden on one layer, which is in black and white in this case, and then we wanted the plants on another layer. And then I talked about how to make these circles crisp by selecting the plants layer and going to SketchUp model and putting it into hybrid rendering here, because normally it'll be in raster, and we put it into hybrid. Now that creates really nice circles, but quite often the labels become, you might experience this when you zoom in, you can't actually read the labels. So there's one more thing we can do. You need the viewport selected again, and you'll see that you've got this option up here for the line scale, and you can take that right down to 0.1 of a point, like so, and you'll see now that you can actually read those labels much more clearly, even when they're quite small, like the Alcarilla mollis there. And yeah, that kind of seems to solve the problem for now. The nice thing about having things on separate layers is that hasn't affected the lines on the layer below. It's only affected this plants layer. So yeah, that's a benefit of that. So hopefully that helps to get these circles as good as possible.